Beneath the facade of an ordinary American town, a sinister plot was unfolding. Here in the heartland, Chester Allen Poage, an unassuming young man with a golden heart, sought companionship and camaraderie. His friendly nature and his desire to fit in were as palpable as the crisp winter air. Chester was the kind of guy who believed in the inherent goodness of people, the kind who would give you the shirt off his back if you asked. On a seemingly ordinary night, he found himself in the company of new acquaintances. The chill of the South Dakota winter was no match for the warmth Chester felt at the prospect of making new friends. Unbeknownst to him, this harmless encounter was a prelude to an unimaginable nightmare. The unseen danger lurking in the shadows was closer than he could ever have anticipated. Little did he know this ordinary night would be his last. Chester's trust was about to be betrayed in the most horrifying way. In the winter of 2000, Chester Allen Poage was a young man with a simple desire: to connect, to belong, to make friends. And for a while it seemed like he had succeeded. Darren, Fernando, and Carlos, they were more than familiar faces to Chester. They were his companions, his confidants. They painted a picture of camaraderie that Chester was all too willing to believe. In the days leading up to Chester's abduction, the trio of friends had hatched a sinister plan. A plan that was as chilling as the late South Dakota winter. It was a scheme so carefully crafted, it would have made even the most seasoned criminals shudder. They knew Chester's desire for friendship was his Achilles heel, so they exploited it. They convinced him to leave the safety of his home, luring him under the guise of a harmless hangout, a get-together that was anything but friendly. A meeting that was not meant for laughter and camaraderie, but for something much darker, much more sinister. The setting was perfect. It was a secluded spot, far away from the prying eyes of the world. The timing was equally impeccable. Late night, the world asleep, oblivious to the terrible fate that was about to befall Chester. These were not friends, Chester would soon realize. These were wolves in sheep's clothing, ready to pounce at the right moment. The jovial laughter, the friendly banter, the shared secrets, they were all a smokescreen, a facade to hide the monstrous intentions lurking beneath. And Chester? He walked right into the trap, blissfully unaware of the impending doom, welcoming each step with a smile, a laugh, a friendly gesture. His trust in his so-called friends was unyielding, unshakable. His faith in their friendship was untarnished, unbroken. Yet he had no idea of the terror that was to come. What started as a chilling night soon turned into a gruesome nightmare. In the stark, icy wilderness of South Dakota, Chester Allen Poage was betrayed by those he sought to call friends. His ordeal, a shocking testament to the depths of human cruelty, spanned a horrifying 4 hours. His tormentors, devoid of any semblance of mercy, reveled in their macabre game, their cold-hearted laughter echoing through the desolate winter night. Imagine a young man stripped of his dignity, his pleas for mercy met with nothing but derisive laughter. Each passing moment a relentless assault on his senses as the bitter cold gnawed at his flesh. Yet the physical torment was just the beginning. His tormentors, driven by a perverse sense of enjoyment, subjected him to unimaginable acts of cruelty. In a chilling display of sadistic pleasure, they used Chester's head as if it were a football, kicking it around with reckless abandon. The physical pain was intense, but perhaps even more damaging was the psychological torment. Chester, desperate and alone, was forced to endure the humiliation and the agony, his hopes of survival dwindling with each passing second. But the brutality didn't stop there. Chester was forced to drink hydrochloric acid, a substance so corrosive it burns and destroys living tissues upon contact. His tormentors, finding amusement in his suffering, laughed as the acid wreaked havoc within his body. The sheer inhumanity of their actions is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the human heart. Throughout the entire ordeal, Chester's pleas for mercy were met with cold indifference. His final request, a desperate plea to die in warmth, was ignored. His killers, filled with a chilling lack of empathy, left him to die alone in the freezing cold. Chester's story is a harrowing tale of betrayal and cruelty, a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink. In the freezing cold, Chester's pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears. His tormentors had one last act of cruelty to perform. It was a chilling night in the heart of South Dakota, the icy winds howling like a pack of wolves. For Chester Allen Poage, these were his final moments. His body, already beaten and broken, was on the brink of surrendering to the painful torture inflicted upon him. A torture that was not just physical, but a brutal assault on his dignity and humanity. His killers, they were no strangers. In fact, they were the ones he considered friends. But in their hearts there was no trace of friendship, only a monstrous cruelty that reveled in his suffering. They had turned his dreams of camaraderie into a living nightmare. The final act of his life was as brutal as the hours that had preceded it. His killers, with a callous disregard for life, forced him into the frigid creek, the icy water a cruel contrast to the acid that had earlier scorched his insides. And then, as if the freezing water wasn't enough, they began to pelt him with rocks. The laughter, the mockery, the sheer pleasure they derived from his suffering, it was a horrifying display of inhumanity. Chester's pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears. His life was treated as a mere game, his pain their source of amusement. Each rock that struck him, each laugh that echoed in the night, it was a testament to their monstrous nature. They didn't just kill Chester, they robbed him of his dignity, his dreams, and his life. His body, now lifeless, lay in the icy creek. His killers, they didn't spare him a second glance. They left him there, alone in the freezing cold. Chester Alan Poage was no more. His life was brutally taken from him, not in a moment of rage, but in a calculated act of cruelty. His life was snuffed out, leaving behind a horrifying tale of betrayal and brutality. In the wake of Chester's death, a town was left reeling. An undercurrent of disbelief and shock rippled through the close-knit community of South Dakota. The discovery of Chester's body, abandoned and mangled, sent tremors of horror that echoed in the hushed whispers of the town's folk. The police, faced with a brutal crime scene, embarked on what would become a relentless pursuit for justice. The ground, frozen and unyielding, bore silent testimony to the horrific ordeal. It was a chilling tableau of betrayal and cruelty. Yet it was within this cold desolation that key pieces of evidence began to emerge. Among the fragments of Chester's life strewn across the frozen ground, the police found the remnants of his belongings. A wallet, a pair of glasses, a mobile phone, each one a silent witness to the terror that had unfolded. These seemingly mundane objects would soon become critical pieces in a jigsaw puzzle of malice and murder. As the investigation unfolded, the town held its breath. The nights seemed colder, the days bleaker. Each revelation was a stark reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded in their midst. But amidst the despair, there was a glimmer of hope. The meticulous efforts of the police were beginning to bear fruit. The trails were converging, leading them to the doorstep of the perpetrators. The arrest of the killers sent a wave of relief, albeit tinged with a bitter aftertaste. The town's quiet streets had been the backdrop of a nightmarish crime, and the scars ran deep. The trial that followed was a grim spectacle, the details of Chester's torture laid bare for all to see. Justice may have been served, but it could never erase the horror of Chester's final hours. The echoes of Chester's ordeal continue to reverberate, a somber reminder of the fragility of trust and the depths of human depravity. And yet, in the face of such unspeakable horror, a community found the strength to stand together, bound by grief and a shared resolve to remember Chester not for his tragic end, but for the life that was so brutally taken from him. Chester's tragic end serves as a chilling reminder of the depth of human cruelty. His life, no matter how short, left an indelible mark on the world, a legacy that continues to echo throughout the halls of justice. The heartbreaking case of Chester Poage shook the very foundations of our society, forcing us to confront the horrifying reality of what one human being can do to another. His story, while tragic, serves as a stark lesson for us all. A lesson that urges us to be vigilant, to be aware of the people we let into our lives. It's a call to action, a plea to not turn a blind eye to the signs of potential danger, to the possibility of betrayal. In the wake of Chester's case, laws have been reformed, awareness has been raised, and steps have been taken to prevent such atrocities from happening again. Yet the fight is far from over. In memory of Chester, we remember not just his tragic end, but the life that was brutally cut short.